Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you with us today. I'm Dr. Richard Martin, and it's my privilege to welcome you to what promises to be an awesome conversation, inspiring to those who are married, hope to be married, were once married, and kind of don't know what the future holds. I have a wonderful couple here with me today who has a heart and a passion for pouring into people, especially those who know what it means to do the work, the hard work, but the good work of marriage. And that is Mr. and Mrs. Dennis and Carlita O'Brien. How are you all doing today?
Good evening, Pastor. We're doing well.
Yeah, I am grateful. As I awesome.
Awesome. So before we hopped on, I asked you guys a question, and I want to ask it for the record. Are you still in love with one another?
Last time I checked, yes, I am. Very much so.
Amen. Amen. I had a teacher years ago who would always come in, and his kind of funny way of checking in with us, he'd say, "Does she still love you?" And we just crack up laughing. That was his way of meddling in our business. And so I'm thankful that last time you checked, you all are still in love. And even though that's kind of a light way of introducing it, the reality is it's good to check in with each other, isn't it?
Absolutely is. Definitely.
Yes.
Very important to do what we call temperature checks.
Yes. Just can't take anything for granted.
Yeah. So let me ask you all this, just so that we have a sense of who we're hearing from. How long have you all been married to one another?
We've been married now for 30 years.
30
we celebrated our
years.
30th year anniversary last September.
Okay.
It was 28th.
Wow.
So that's the day our son was born. But yeah, it's September 10th.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
September 10th, 1994.
Yes.
So might I surmise that you all have been together, when you add up dating, engagement, marriage, longer than you've been apart from each other?
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Amen.
Yes.
We're looking at 38 years together.
Awesome. That's phenomenal. You all have privilege. And that's the word to use, right? A journey indeed. I'll be the first to admit I've probably watched one too many movies, one too many rom-coms, one too many Disney shows that just kind of skip from meeting to happily ever after, right? And they never really focus in on all that can transpire within a couple's journey towards oneness. And as we have had the chance to talk off the record, as you all have had the chance to pour into couples here in our island home of Bermuda, and perhaps even beyond this, you've been able to be welcomed into other people's journeys, kind of as encouragers, and others have been welcomed into your own journey. There are certain people who have been instrumental, I'm sure, in your relationship along the years. And by God's grace, in just a few weeks at the time of this recording, my bride and I will celebrate 10 years of marriage. And God is great. It is a journey. And I'll say this, my understanding of marriage and what it requires, what it invites us to invest in it, is far more mature now than it was on February 8th, 2015. And I'm thankful for that. And it's because of kind couples, interested couples who have come alongside us. And that's what we want to do tonight, is really have a chance to take one conversation and reach many people with it, kind of coming alongside them as encouragers, as it were, not speaking from the mountaintop down into the valley as though we've arrived, but just sharing some awareness points that couples can take this year, 2025 and beyond, to strengthen their relationship. So the first question I want to ask you all, in your experience, in your conversations, or even in your own journey, what are some common obstacles that prevent couples from experiencing oneness?
Firstly, I would say when it comes to marriage, because it was something that was created in Eden, there was always a blueprint that was put together for marriage. and many people don't know that blueprint, so they kind of go into marriage trying to do things their own way, when it's actually spelled out for them in Ephesians 5, from Ephesians 5:22 on to 33.
Yeah.
You can actually, it is actually spelled, the word spells it out for what are the roles of the wife, what is the roles for the husband. That's one.
Yeah. Yeah. Not knowing God's blueprint is an essential one to mention. That term blueprint kind of evokes in my mind the image of what is needed to build a house or to build any kind of infrastructure. You can go a lot of different directions and completely miss the ideal if you don't know God's blueprint. All right.
And what happens when it comes to building? It's strange you said that about building, because I used this analogy some time ago in one of the devotions we had. If you're building a wall, most masons know that you have a point, and then you put a line down, because if you start your cornerstone or your brick, and it's slightly off, when you get about 10 feet down away, it's the space between where you start and at 10 foot, it's off even more. And the further along you go, it gets even more off.
Wow.
So it's imperative that you start with a blueprint that's gonna work.
Awesome. Sister O'Brien.
I would say one common obstacles couples experience oneness would be the lack of communication. Two individuals coming together and trying to figure each other out. I would say for Dennis and I, he's the more talkative one, very open and frank. And for me, I am more quiet, reserved, would not be as forthright in communicating. And so when we're trying to achieve things and work things out and trying to go in the same direction, if we're not communicating frequently and constantly, and feeling that we're not in an environment where we are feeling that we can share what we're, what's on our minds and what we're thinking, with fear of hurting each other's feelings, then we can actually start not being open and honest with each other. And that is one obstacle that will prevent us from achieving oneness. So that's just kind of just an everyday issue when it comes to communicating in any relationship. When you're trying to go in a direction and you feel that may not be the direction that it will go into, if we're not communicating and trying to work things out, then we're not going to be traveling towards our common goal. So that would be one thing in terms of communicating as a couple.
Yeah. And another thing would be people get into marriages and feel that they can still be single. And that will never work. Not if you want to be married. If you want to be single, stay single.
Yeah.
And leave people alone.
Wow.
Just stay single. But you can't be married and single at the same time. What you see nowadays is so many people rolling out tropes and on social media saying, basically, you can't lose yourself into your marriage.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you lose if you're married? You get married because you decided. You've actually made covenants. It's a covenant. that you've made with God and with someone else, to be by their side until one of you closes their eyes. That's essentially what it is. So you can go in that wanting to be have your own agenda, do things by yourself, your way, and hoping somebody's just going to be and get on your page.
For sure.
Or that's your desire for someone to get on your page, and that's the way it's going to go. It's going to be a world of hurt.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a miserable experience for both of you, actually, if you impact on someone else's life that way. Plus you are frustrated because you feel they're not doing what you want them to do.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that there are a lot of people who, whether they know it or not, and let me not just say a lot of people, because that sounds like them out there. I think we all can be vulnerable to influences that say, straddle the fence, get the best and the blessed of marriage, but also try to get the good about being single at the same time. And I'll never forget, a similar statement was made in a marriage enrichment group at our first church that a wonderful couple would put on, similar to you all, maybe once a month. And it was marriage enrichment. They would have lunch after service, invite all who wanted to come. And the brother the husband of the couple would always emphasize that you can't be married and single at the same time. And I think he was saying that knowing that that's a common temptation. And it's not only a temptation in the sexual sense, right? Where you're trying to reap the benefits of sexual intimacy with your spouse, but then also with someone else or something else. But even in terms of obstacle number 2, the kind of communication, right? Communication changes when you are married. And at times you can continue to communicate in ways that you would and might have been appropriate and acceptable when you were single. And some people may do it ignorantly. They might not have known, like, hey, you're married now. Like, you probably don't want to be up at 11:30 talking to an ex-girlfriend who's a friend. like that. That's not going to work, right? But others, maybe there's a little bit more willful, volitional choice to it, where you're trying to get the best of both worlds. And in 2025 and beyond, I think that's a key obstacle to be aware of. First, as a point of self-awareness, am I trying to do both through my actions or lack thereof, my speech or lack thereof? Am I sending this signal to my spouse that when it's convenient for me, I enjoy being married to you, but at the same time, when it's convenient for me, I kind of like to live like I'm single. Last story, I'll transition to another obstacle. I'll throw one in the mix. I'll never forget my mom. She told us this story years ago when she kind of first started in her professional life after college. They were going on a business trip out of state, out of city. And she knew that a number of her colleagues were married. So she was very surprised when a couple of them were like, come on, we're going to go out of the town and see if we can hook up. And she was like, what do you mean? What do you mean hook up? I mean, she was completely like, not even know. It's like, oh, come on, our husbands are back in wherever, and we're here. What happens here stays here. And she was very shocked because she thought this was only stuff that was like made for TV. She didn't know that in real life, there was kind of this weekend hall pass, as it were, mentality that people have. And for her, it was a healthy dose of awareness to say, look, the world is a strange place to live in, and you have to make a decision every day. What values are going to guide the type of relationship you have? And I don't even think my mom was married at the time. She hadn't met my dad yet. So that was something brought into the relationship. If I'm going to be married, I'm going to be married, because I'm not trying to do this married and single thing.
And when you're married, it moves from I to us and from me to we. And so we not only do we watch what we say, but we need to really be cognizant of what sort of messaging we're putting out there in our actions and our words. We might not even say anything, but how are we moving? What they call out in these streets. It's like, how are we moving out there? If our actions can be showing that I might be on the hunt. You might be subtle. But these are sorts of messaging you don't want to be putting out there.
For sure, for sure. So let me ask you all this. Well, actually, before I ask you the next question, I want to throw one more in there, and that's this. I find that at times a fix them attitude can be an obstacle. And what I mean is, whenever problems arise or obstacles show themselves, or maybe we just kind of are having a rough patch, it can be easy to think that if they are fixed, then it will all be resolved.
Sure,
right?
sure.
That if they would make the adjustments, or if he or she, whichever side you're on, if the other person would just understand or would just get it, then all would be right in our world again. And I'll confess, I have had that thought before. I've had that feeling before. And normally what that feeling is just a guise for either A, not knowing what work you need to do, like what is my contribution either to the issue or to the solution.
Absolutely.
Or knowing what it is and just not wanting to put forth the energy, right, that is required. If this is we and not me, if this is us and not I, then the fix, the solution, it just can't be on them. And that for me, I have found in conversing with others, in reflecting on our own journey, in being in a pastoral situation where couples may come and have conversation, at length, you kind of hear like, man, it really sounds like a lot of the problem narrative, at least from this person's vantage point, is the person on the other side of the couch or the person on the other side of the table. And very rarely is the mirror held up to say, well, let me kind of see where the spots and blemishes, or to use Jesus's term, where the plank in my eye is, right? What do you think about that? Have you seen that before, that fix them attitude?
Yeah,
of course.
That was me. It was me. I mean, have I seen it?
Yeah, it's always looking. It's easier.
We should put up our hands first.
Yeah, it's easier to be, deflect and look at the other individual versus looking at ourselves. Just as how we are as humans, naturally we're just going to be, looking to see who we can blame. When you look in the Bible in Eden, Eve blamed the snake, Adam blamed Eve, so that's just how it is, right? But I agree with that it's so easy to have blame the other person rather than us taking accountability for ourselves and having that inward reflection and say, what is it that I have done to contribute to this versus looking at the other individual. But one of the other obstacles that I had wanted to share is that when we're looking at busyness and life, busyness can be seen as the enemy to our relationships because it is the enemy. Because we're just busy, and we could be busy doing good things. But if we're not being intentional and purposeful with regards to making our marriage a priority, that can be an obstacle to oneness because we're just going in different paths. And as I said, it could be good things, and for us, being Christians, we could be involved in things at church, doing things in the community, and helping everyone else. But then we're not helping our relationship and being there to support and be spending the time that we need to spend with each other and encouraging and building up each other. So that's an obstacle that I see as well, is being busy. And we have various roles, husband and wife and mother and father, and working full time, and whatever positions that we may have in the community and church. Those things can result in us having obstacles to oneness. And again, the key word is being intentional. We have to be intentional about planning everything. Just as we organize and plan for our work and other things, we have to organize and plan for our marriage and our relationship.
Yeah, when you've been married as long as we have, spontaneity is something that's left for Hollywood. You need to be intentional. You absolutely need to be intentional, and sometimes that comes with planning.
Yeah.
I want to just go back to what you were saying about speaking about a bit earlier, and when it came up to accountability, when it comes to looking at your relationship and the different things that occur in your relationship, and we tend to like point the finger at the other person. It comes from the inability, or the willful the inability or the willingness not to do any type of self-examination.
Wow.
You know, and you're not intentional about even you're gonna hear this word a lot, intentional about looking at yourself and doing some self-evaluation. Then that's where the accountability just goes out the window. And accountability is very important when it comes to any issue that you're dealing with within a marriage. What role did I play in where we are right now? Because many people, was something I heard before. It's like many people, you can ask somebody, how long have you pretended like you don't know what was your contribution into the demise of the relationship or the state that it's in right now? Really, you're pretending because you know for a fact you have if we're being honest with ourselves, we play a role in it in everything that happens.
Yeah, very much so. So I actually want that to be, I think it can be number one in answer of this question, and that is, what are some practices? We have kind of, if you were to use that biblical metaphor, we've referenced Eden and the first couple a few times now. Scholars have said that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was right next to the tree of life in close enough proximity to where you're just like, if you had turned that way. And so if all of these obstacles, as it were fruit that we maybe all have bitten from or could bite from or maybe tempted to bite from. Maybe right near them is a different tree with different fruit. We'll call those practices that we can choose to employ this year and going forward. So what are some helpful practices couples can use to foster oneness? I want to make that one number one that you just said. Practice number one, accountability and self-examination.
Yeah.
Right? That this is a practice that we can own, that kind of responds to a number of obstacles that we have put out there. Of course, the fix them attitude. One way to kind of practice something that avoids that obstacle is saying, let me take personal accountability and self-examination. Brother O'Brien.
Pray with each other every day. Sometimes people say I'm going to my prayer corner and I'm going to pray for my spouse. But what about praying with them? This is why I say this. It's very difficult to get on your knees first thing in the morning and pray with your spouse about their health, about the health of your relationship, about the love that you share, and other things as well, all manner of things. But to pray in that manner and then later on disrespect them, later on disregard their feelings, later on be cantankerous or short with them, when you got on your knees and prayed with them first thing in the morning. So praying with each other, that makes a real difference, to pray with one another each morning.
If I'm hearing you, it sounds like that is kind of its own protection, for the things that may pop up during the day, And I'm
gonna be honest with you. I'm the first one to say that doesn't protect you from what Satan wants to do to your marriage, because he wants you to break up. And he'll put all manner of things in before you, and in some cases, people, you heard some people say, if my biggest problem is in my life is who I got married to.
Yeah.
But they never look in the mirror.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I pray with and for my wife each day, and I pray for longevity of life so that we can continue this journey and continue to grow and learn.
Yeah.
You know, that's what this whole thing's about. God is trying to teach us and perfect our character within our marriage.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, every day we get an opportunity. Every day we have an opportunity, as long as we breathe, to start another and start over again, because He gives you another, and to fulfill our purpose. Because if we're here, He has something for us to do.
Yes, sir.
But we have another opportunity to love on this person.
Yeah.
And to get it right. We're not gonna always get it right, but if we open our eyes and we're on our knees and we're praying for each other, we have another opportunity to show and share our love, and in our home before we even leave. So we should get our practice for how we should treat everybody else at home.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Whereas, you know, we practice on loving and doing everything for everybody else, and everybody at home gets the crumbs, get the scraps at the end of the day. You know, it should be. It's not. That wasn't God's plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not the blueprint.
No, it's not the blueprint.
No.
And usually that's kind of what's happened. We can be all cordial and lovely and to everyone else.
Yeah.
And so many people have so many wonderful things to say about you outside of your home. And we don't even look at you and your wife don't even look at each other.
Yeah.
You know, you tend to come home. There's no intentionality. So you go in your corner, they go in their corner, and everybody's on the cell phone and the cell phones. Actually, well, it was a while back. People now are no longer having affairs with other persons. They're having affairs with the cell phones. That's the other person in their life. That's not the other thing in their life is the phone.
Yeah. Always there.
They get the freshest squeeze out of us.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And it's crazy because it may sound funny, but no, I'm sure many people, if they've never articulated it to their spouse in their hearts, they may have said, "Man, I can't remember the last time I've held hands with my spouse, but that phone is never out of his or her hand." You know what I mean? You've said something that is just overwhelming. In fact, as we've gone throughout our conversation, I've just been like, man, any one of these could be a conversation unto itself. You know, we could literally talk about the benefits of praying with each other for the next 30 minutes. Because one thought came to mind. I was just trying to think of that person who's listening, and they're saying, man, they've just invited me to pray with my spouse. But that person may not either have a personal prayer habit themselves, or they may feel very unprepared or not really know, like, man, how do I pray with my spouse? So what would you say by way of encouragement to that person who's listening? And they're like, listen, this would be a major step for me to pray with my spouse because nothing we've ever done before. Where do they begin? What do they pray about? How do they pray? What would you say to that person?
It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be a long prayer. You're praying. It could be something that shows your love, shows your devotion and your willingness to work with them.
Yeah.
By doing that, it actually can show them that you see them.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't have to be something spectacular where, you know, like I would say, like I'm looking at the path, Dr. Martin. He's I don't know what do you want to even call it? I mean, the way you speak, like, you know, the words that you use, you have a wonderful way with the English language. You know, it's sometimes it's just like it's almost, you know, like there are some people that I love to hear sing, but you're somebody I love to hear speak.
Oh, thank you, man.
That sort of thing. So, but you don't need to be. They don't need to be like that.
That's
it's something that's simple. Like every morning when we wake up, we found that you know, when people first get married, They say their vows on their wedding day, and they don't really share anything from that day on that remotely sounds like vows, like something that they're promising to their spouse.
Yeah.
So each morning when we get up, once we finish praying, we embrace one another, look each other in the eye, and this is what I say to my wife. I say, today, Carlita, with God's help, I want to with God's help, I'm going to make our marriage the priority it was meant to be, to love and lead, to protect you and provide you, and to nourish and to cherish you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I say every day.
Yeah.
And then I reply and say, Dennis, with God's help, I pledge to make our marriage the priority it's meant to be, to love, honor, cherish, to respect you, to be a helper, to support you, to encourage you, and to cheer you on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something, when you say those words, now do we get it right every day? No, but it's just something that we continue, because that's what we are committing that we want to do each and every day.
It's a part of our marriage culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I would say in terms of, the question about praying and, how do people start to pray for each other? I would just say, just pick one thing, just say, it could be that I just want to, pray. Let's agree to pray on finances. It could be pray on our health. It could be, mental or physical. It could be, pray for a good day at work. It doesn't have to be so complex, and it's just a conversation with God. What is it that I would want to pray for my spouse, for success, whatever that success could be, There's also, in terms of things that, everything is on online these days, just type in a prayer for my husband, a prayer for my wife, and just read it off. It doesn't have to be so complex, so highfalutin prayer. God wants us to just be so honest and just make things simple. It doesn't have to be a complex prayer for each other.
No, that's encouraging. That's encouraging in a major way, because I think it liberates people from any type of pedestal avatar that they may have. Like, if I'm going to pray with my spouse, then it has to be like this, and it's a conversation. And I would say, like, maybe working out, a person may have found, man, when I was on my own trying to work out and maintain consistency, it was difficult. But when I got a workout partner, I found that it was more enjoyable. I found that I was more consistent. So even if you don't have, at least in your mind, a consistent personal prayer habit, the catalyst to that may be actually starting with your spouse. And that could then influence a personal prayer habit. And so I think that this practice, praying with each other, is a golden practice that a person can harness, in addition to accountability and self-examination. Sister O'Brien, you have a practice that you want to add, or Brother O'Brien?
Sure.
Well, go ahead.
Yes. At the beginning, I did say he likes to talk the most. But one helpful practice that we could use to foster oneness would be plan out a date night. Just in terms of when we go back to what's one of the obstacles, the busyness, I would say just, plan out some time just to be able to spend time with each other. And that's where the communication will come in. How was your day? What went well, what didn't go well? How is the relationship going? Pen it in and put it into our calendars. That way it becomes part of who we are. And rather than trying to, as Dennis has said, be spontaneous, it's just not going to work. So I would say a practice towards fostering oneness, because that's where we can have a lot of time to gather just to discuss what's going on in our relationship and how we're feeling. And it doesn't have to be expensive. There are different ways. I mean, Bermuda is so beautiful. Right now it's cold. So for us, but going for a drive in the car, you don't have to always go out and do an expensive dinner. We have some natural beauty in Bermuda. So I would say utilize what we have to be able to just get out in nature and enjoy some time together.
Let me just say, you guys are speaking to me. Between the two of us, I definitely am the one who was probably a little intoxicated with that spontaneity juice, thinking that if it's supposed to be fresh and if it's supposed to be romantic and spicy, they shouldn't see it coming, right? But I've had to learn, nah, man, sometimes it's way better for them to see it coming, for both of you to see it coming. It builds anticipation to know, oh man, Thursday evenings, that's us. And it actually helps keep other stuff, going back to busyness, from bombarding your life, because sorry. In fact, even when we were having this conversation, we were planning for this conversation, we were all checking our calendars. And you guys said your night, that was a no-go. And I was like, well, Thursday night's not for us. And it just kind of allows you to know that there's some time coming ahead. So I'm a recovering spontaneity guy.
and the thing is, I'll tell anybody, you can have the spontaneity. All you have to do is write it into your script, right? Your Hollywood script, and how that works out for you, because that's where you see that spontaneity. You don't need Hollywood.
It's
this is what I would say. When you plan, you're intentional about saying this night is our date night. The spontaneity you can have is and it can come in the form of what you do within that time.
Sure.
So that's when you can just say, well, we got that time and we'll do whatever we want with it. Yeah. So if you want to be, you just be as creative as you want in that time, but you already know by intention that time is going to be the time that you're going to spend together. And in some cases, you even look forward to it because it's planned. Yeah. Rather than just sit one person who is probably the romantic one sitting and hoping that the other one's gonna become romantic or become spontaneous. It's not gonna happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
If it's not in them,
Right.
One thing one exercise that we actually did, we did a vision board session with a group of couples, individuals, and that helped us to be able to even look at how we want to, for our vision for our marriage, so that we can work towards oneness. So that's a practice. We do it. Things that happen in business life. Again, we seem to do a lot of things in business, in our business lives, plan, organize, do vision boards and different things like that. And we found that to be helpful so that we can say, okay, well, this is what we want to do for our marriage relationship. And we found that to be very helpful. And it was a fun activity, to do.
And it's something you can continue to look at. It's something that's tangible in order to look at and say, we could do that, or we could do that, because you've written it up, and it's something that you can aspire to inspire. Aspire to do, in a future date, but at least it's there and something that you can actually point your finger to.
Following up on that, and I love it, would you all be able to pinpoint maybe over the last 5 years, within the last 5 years, is there something from one of your vision boards, or it can be more recent than that, it could be the last year, something where it's just like, yeah, Pastor, we had this on our board and we were able to see it come to fruition. Would you mind sharing one of those?
You take one, I take one.
Sure. So one of ours was to attend a marriage retreat.
Okay.
And we did accomplish that. And
marriage retreat where?
Oh, overseas. Sorry. It was specific that we wanted to do a marriage retreat overseas, and we accomplished that, and we got some really great, useful information, tools, tips, and we were able to, you know, share some of that with couples when we came back to Bermuda as part of our couples devotion. And we purchased a few books, and one book that we purchased was Vertical Marriage, which is what we're doing now with our couples devotion. So, but it was amazing to go overseas to a marriage retreat and see, you know, hundreds of people there.
It
was really good. Yeah,
something like over 300 couples in this this convention.
So you mean to tell me 30 years in, you guys are not done working on your marriage?
What, not done working on it? We're being worked on.
Amen.
We're being worked on by God. It's like this never ends.
It's a commitment to keep working to become one.
Right now, as we speak, there are some issues that we're having in our marriage that we're working on right now. And I think the last time we talked about it was Friday night going. We were talking about it the day before we did our devotion, you know. But and it came out of the book. The questions that were in the back after chapter 1 and chapter 2 prompted conversation that we had to pointed us toward things that we need to work on. And one out arrived. And another thing, just moving on, another thing that we got from our vision board actually was exercise. We want to really focus on exercising and being intentional about being consistent with exercise. And since that, we have now we began to do spinning. So we spin 3 times a week. 3 times a week we spin, and that's been going on for the last 2 years.
Awesome. Is there maybe one final practice that you would share with couples that they can kind of keep in their quiver over the next year to pull out when it's needed?
It's really something that is, I would say, is physical and mental. When I say this, and that is turn toward each other. Turn toward each other and look at the relationship that you have with each other as the most important relationship you have on this earth. There is, outside of your relationship, if you're a follower of Christ, is your relationship with God. Outside of that, there is no other relationship more important than your marriage. With your spouse.
Just practicing grace. You know, just practicing grace. We're not perfect. We strive towards progress. And 2 individuals who are different, coming together to work towards becoming one. As I said earlier, it's a journey. And so our relationships, our marriages are to represent the love that Christ has for the church. And so, when we look at Christ, the grace that is bestowed out amongst us each and every day. I just say, just practice grace with each other, I would say.
Yeah, that's real talk. We need that. And I mean, I think you referenced it at the top. Ephesians 5 invites us to husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. It speaks about that love being reciprocated from wives to husbands. And Christ's love for the church is filled with grace. John 1, he came filled with grace and truth, right? And I think both of those operating within the marriage space is an enriching practice that allows us to make steps towards oneness. I just want to recap really quickly. We have covered the obstacles that can prevent any of us, no matter how long or recent you've been married, And if you're looking forward to marriage, these things hopefully are kind of pre-inspiring notes that you can take into account. But the practice is, you want to practice accountability and self-examination. Number two, you want to practice praying with each other. Doesn't matter if it's long, it can be one item, but cultivating prayer is a form of protection in your marriage and intimacy building as well. Plan date night. Don't leave it to spontaneity. Don't leave it to chance. The busyness of life is just a reality. And you want to plan those bad boys. Create a vision board or some type of vision apparatus and platform that allows you all to be able to look forward with excitement and then celebrate those wins. When you take the marriage retreat overseas, when you incorporate a workout regimen, it allows there to be some, Kyle and I call them God markers on your journey, where you can say, oh man, you know, this was introduced to our relationship. This was introduced, you said something, I love the language, the culture, the atmosphere of our union, right? That we are seeking to lay down some values, some behaviors and beliefs in our relationship. And then turning towards each other by practicing grace. This allows us to say, man, if we can look back on this year and see how we drew on these practices in our effort to become one, I believe that any couple could say, this was a worthwhile endeavor. I'm glad that we tried these practices. So listen, as we prepare to close, I know that this list for the next question could be endless, but I just want one from each of you. What resource would you encourage a couple to invest in that would enrich their marriage this year?
Did we take it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And do we agree?
Okay, so we stumbled upon a book. Well, I've been listening to a podcast that is that's called Sexy Marriage. It's called the One Extraordinary Marriage. That's what it's from, and it's it's Tony and Alicia Di Lorenzo. They have a book that they put out called The 6 Pillars of Intimacy. And that book is really good. It's a good book. And I say it's a good book because it is it's very easy to read. So you're not reading concepts that are just that will go over your head. For someone who doesn't like to read, it's not difficult to read this book. And what it does is it highlights the 6 pillars of intimacy that that they look at on our marriages. And they go through each of them. First one being the emotional intimacy. Second one, physical. You have sexual. You have financial. You have spiritual. You have recreational. And these pillars, the workhorse of all these pillars is the emotional intimacy pillar. When you have cracks in that pillar, it affects all the rest. So this book I would recommend to a married couple to go through. You can actually get it. You can actually get the audio book as well if you want. If you don't feel like reading it, you want to listen to it, you can get the audio version as well. Awesome. I don't know if it's going to show there, but this is the book here.
There it is. Awesome.
6 pillars of intimacy.
Yeah. That was a really a great resource that not only was impactful to us, but also impactful to other couples who we, went through it together with them. And, one of the things is that the book says that they're not going to start out with sexual intimacy first. Everyone thinks that should be the number one pillar of intimacy.
But most men do.
That's true.
But emotionally, if that pillar is not has lots of cracks in it, nothing else is going to be able to be successful. No other of the 5 intimacies. So it was really good, and something that we thought we would cover in a year, we ended up having to carry it over because there was so much dialogue on just getting everyone to understand about the emotional intimacy.
Sure.
It took like half a year just getting to the emotion. That's just one chapter, but it was just so much conversation and so many things that was unpacked with that one chapter.
Hey, listen, this is excellent. One Extraordinary Marriage podcast and the 6 pillars of intimacy, whether physical or audiobook. This is golden. I'm excited. I'm going to invest in these myself. Always looking to, like you said, be worked on, right? For the sake of that commitment towards becoming one.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is, and this is what we got from the couples retreat that we went overseas. It's that it's 2 things that happens when it comes to your marriage. You're either moving toward oneness or drifting toward isolation.
Yeah, I was hoping that one would come up because you guys dropped that on me before. Yeah, but it's real. It's really real. So we have an exciting opportunity ahead of us. At the time of this recording, January 2025, the last weekend in March 28th and 29th, Friday and Saturday, is the Pathways to Oneness Marriage Retreat, sponsored by the Bermuda Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. This is an idea you all came to me with last year. You said, Pastor, we've been working with couples, sitting with couples, listening to couples. And we think it would be more than worthwhile to have some dedicated time to invest in the couples on our island. And we're excited that we are coming toward that point. March 28th and 29th, 2025, the Pathways to Oneness Marriage Retreat. More information will be shared. Be on the lookout, on the listen out. It's an opportunity to take what we have heard tonight, during this conversation, and build upon it. We have excellent presenters coming in, Doctors Willie and Elaine Oliver, the family life leaders of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And I just want you to know that no matter if you are newlyweds or oldie weds, whatever that is, and anywhere in between, you can grow. We want you to know that it doesn't matter if you feel like, hey, we are that couple and we are growing more and more isolated. We're on the rocks. We don't know what the future of our relationship is. Or if you feel like, man, everything that this couple has said here in this conversation, I already knew. Doesn't matter. We want you to know that you can grow, you can encourage someone else. And this is an opportunity where we'll be able to come together and leave equipped, inspired, and given some practical takeaways that we can apply. This is why we were very intentional. Obstacles and practices, things that you can do to enrich your relationship as you journey towards oneness. Any final thoughts or comments before we say goodnight?
Sure. I just want to say that I just want to encourage every couple to just keep pressing forward. Nothing in life is easy, but we just hope that there's something that we said this evening that encourages you to just keep pressing forward and remembering that it's a journey, and it's a journey towards becoming one.
Yes. There's no finish line to this. So what you are doing actually is looking at it as practice does not make you perfect. But in this instance, practice makes progress. That's all.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien, for pouring out and pouring in. May God bless you and your union as you continue practicing, as you continue showing grace and making progress and encouraging other couples along the way. Thank you for listening and looking. We're looking forward to growing together, one step at a time. Until next time, may God bless you and may God keep you is our prayer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.